Mortal Kombat Onslaught is going offline soon, so I want to commemorate the game's short life by discussing how much it missed the mark with the character designs. For those who never gave the game a try, it reused assets and designs from MK11, but done up a little to look more distinct. Essentially, someone went into MK11's customization to create new looks for the cast. Sometimes it worked really well. Other times, they got lazy and just reused the designs as is. If only they'd put more effort in, the game might still be alive. And WB couldn't even give us a new RPG to fill the void left when they tore the best MK game in a decade away from us. Fortunately, we can make our own MK Onslaught with Echo of Mobius, the sponsor of today's video. Echo of Mobius is an upcoming lightweight RPG that I think is rather neat. The player summons characters they name and describe for themselves, and the studio's in-house AI generation tool will design them based on your input. The AI is trained on art created by the team themselves, in case you're concerned about that. This benefits the game actually, by giving its characters a unified art style and not the hodgepodge one might expect from AI generation. Each character can evolve into two cooler versions of themselves as they level up through either turn-based battles or text-based adventures. From the early build demo I had access to, the combat isn't to my liking, but the adventure shows a lot of promise. The player can take a party of 3 into either prefab adventures or ones the player can prompt for themselves. These ones can get pretty crazy, let me tell you. But either type of adventure allows the player to submit their own choice if the ones presented aren't suited to the abilities of their characters. I need to go back and take my MK team on another quest to kick in Quan Chi's balls after this, which I think is what we all wanted from an MK RPG spin-off. It's still early days and the game will enter early access in November, but the demo is out now on Steam and is linked at the top of the description. So go give it a try and see what kinds of adventures you can have in this genuinely unique little game. And maybe wishlist the game if you see the same potential I do. The potential of AI generation to build simple adventures is quite intriguing, and I'm excited to see how much the team at D can improve on the concept. Thanks again to Echo of Mobius for letting me continue my MK Onslaught adventures. Now, back to the real MK Onslaught. What I'm going to do today is reimagine the character costumes using the same assets the team had access to see if I can make some unique designs from what MK11 offers. I'm actually at a disadvantage here because some of the Onslaught designs have new colour schemes not available in MK11 while I'm sticking to what it does have. For me, the key is to prioritise alternate costumes and styles, maybe with new colour schemes. Each design must feel new and not like a rehash of 11, feel authentic to the character in both shape and colour, no Shirai Raidens here, feel like it could be the main design in a new game and not some random alternate. Alternates get more freedom to be unique and out there, while defaults are expected to stick to the established style more closely. So with our ground rules and aim set, let's get into our first character, Liu Kang. Onslaught took his MK11 story design with that awful top and just changed his bandana into a black one that throws off the colour balance. His bandana is bright red to stand out from his black hair, this just blends in. My design is instead a shirtless style because that's more traditional and allows it to feel less like it's derived from 11. I used the red and black inverse palette, which still works because the ratio of those colours fluctuates so much as is. The bandana is the red and black one because this palette makes all the bandanas black, and I've already explained why that doesn't work. The gauntlets are a little different from what's typical, but the alternatives were the same ones he has in 11, or ones that are arbitrarily different and don't actually fit him all that well. Overall, I think it works. Kung Lao takes the stripped down version of his past costume and recolours it to his classic black, blue and red colour scheme. Weird lack of gauntlets despite having them in the cinematics aside, it's miles better than his 11 design. Without the ability to recolour though, I took the stripped down version in black and yellow instead with a different pair of gauntlets. Alas, this is a lot more challenging for the characters with evil forms, since those characters inherently have half as many options to design a fitting costume. Raiden likewise struggles a bit. Rather than the broad whitening they did to his 11 story costume, I went with a colouring version of his classic MK2-ish look. The normal palette would be a bit too basic, but the idea of swapping the colours around, while awful in many cases, can work with particular colour palettes, and I think Raiden's is one of them. I also gave him a hat with the gaps in it like MKX or Onslaught itself, because I think it's a neat look. I also swapped his amulet for a random medallion to separate him from the 9 to 11 timeline. I also conceived a new Dark Raiden fit for the endgame. Onslaught uses the 11 design wholesale. Mine strips away the armour and brings in a metal hat with some intimidating red glow to add to his menace. The replacement amulet also goes dull and cloudy when he turns for a bit of subtle symbolism. Fujin was lazily given his story mode design from 11 with no alteration of note. I gave him the one with the alternate top since the alternatives are the Mythologies outfit with an unfitting hairstyle or his canonically dark Fujin outfit from 11. I'm not entirely happy here because of the palettes on offer, but I'd take it over just the Aftermath design. At least the War God design was neat. Johnny Cage went through a few revisions with tank tops, but I ultimately felt the jacket style Onslaught went with was the right direction for him since he's working with the SF. I just went with his classic black and blue colour scheme instead of the weird maroon they went with. Sonya Blade was given the MK11 past outfit, but swapping the drab beige out for a nice forest green. Miles better, but still a simple recolour. I opted for the sleeveless jacket variant of her present costume, but swapping the blue for a green colour that I think suits Sonya better in her youth. Sort of a more serious take on her MK9 costume, but with a different cap than the XN11 one for a slightly different vibe. Jax is just his default with a green shirt, which is fine. I opted for the more classic shirtless outfit with some rounder, less bulky arms than what the NetherRealm era tended towards. My version would also retain the beard unlike the official ones, since we needed to remind people that Jax is older than Sonya, which his MK11 babyface does not convey in the slightest. Sub-Zero was given the 11 default, which isn't canon, so it kinda works, but it does still feel like a rehash, and they even made it worse by adding even more blue and ruining the colour balance. My version is just the non-canon past version, but at least it has better colour balance in spite of the extra lines 11 felt the need to include on bloody everything. Scorpion has the best redesign in Onslaught, dropping the red and silver to make the non-canon default look more focused in its palette, and giving it a different mask that helps to distinguish it further, and retaining a degree of the threatening look an initially villainous Scorpion should have. It's his best look since 2011, maybe even further back. I took the flame pattern variant of the past version, since the present version's alternate palettes lean too far into black instead of yellow. Noob Saibot takes his 11 default design, including the superior mask. It's a better design, but still feels too similar to 11. My version uses the less spiky variant and a more classic helmet, since I don't think the shiny armour of the alternate look really fits the character all that much. This one is tinted blue a little, which I think more noob designs should do to recall his past as Sub-Zero. Frost exists in human form only in Onslaught, despite masterminding the Cyber Lin Kuei as far as we know. Her look is the classic costume from 11, but with alterations to make her human. My version is building on Sector's work to create a more sophisticated cyber form, while retaining her classic hairstyle as much as possible, and adding some self-aggrandizing flourishes to her new Cyber Grandmaster form. It's not as sleek as Chronica's design since it's still early days for the cyborgs. Kitana took an already terrible outfit and made it worse by turning all the black on her story mode outfit dark blue, making it look incredibly atonal. I opted for the variant of the default that has the flaps and more skin, the one basically everyone would have preferred her to have in story mode, and a different mask. The mask is a small change, since most masks here carry that different from the main look most gear pieces at large have, so something simple but slightly different was preferable to different but unfitting. Melina takes her MK11 default as is. I opted for the Kitana inspired one with a matching mask so that she can impersonate Kitana in the early story, instead of continuing the trend of looking nothing at all like Kitana. She'd get a more distinct design once she's exposed as a fake later in the plot. Jade has 3 options for alternatives. The Oshtek variant that emphasises her connection to Kotal, better as an alt. The unhooded variant that I feel is lacking in aesthetic character, which they used, and the one that retains the hood but exposes more skin and changes the material. I opted for the latter since I do think it has more character to it, but I don't begrudge the team at all for their version. Whichever your preference though, we can all agree that both are superior to 11's fit for retaining her mask and her namesake colour scheme, instead of that Yanni Lorelas brown or purple fit they gave her in the console game. Tanya reuses her MKX design unaltered, but she has a unique armoured look in MK Mobile, which is the design I'd adopt for her here to make it feel like a new Tanya. Scarlet simply took her 11 story design in the black and red inversion palette. I took the sleeveless variant with the classic hairstyle and left it at that. I do wonder why they so often stuck to 11 so closely when these other models already exist. Sindel took her Aftermath design, made it black and purple, and trimmed off the excess fabric for performance reasons I assume. I opted to play into the story where Quan Chi revives her and made her a Revenant with the scaled back variant and some additional armour. Again, alternatives are limited, but I think this design looks just different enough to make it feel like it could be an Onslaught original. Shao Kahn was shockingly easy to fix in Onslaught. They took his default, gave him the MK9 helmet, turned the gold armour silver, and presto, a much better look despite still carrying many of the community's issues with the 11 design. Mine is simply the shirtless variant of the samurai outfit since the classic look is too generic and the full samurai styles don't fit him as a default the way they do as an alternate. General Kotal comes in with just the 11 design. For him, I'm torn between an unpainted pre-Khan design that lacks Kotal's core aesthetic but fits better narratively, and one of the variants of his default in a darker blue with more focus on blood magic. I'm leaning towards the latter as his default, with the former being an option for an alt later. Collector never made his way into the game, so I just gave him the alternate hooded variant in black. The armour doesn't fit as a default design. Baraka is simply his shirtless variant in red pants. I decided to go for the less armoured variant in his deception colours, since the savage look doesn't work as a primary to me, and the shirtless one isn't an especially interesting look. Shiva only appears in a single cutscene but never in gameplay, and her design is just a red palette for her default costume. The others are a very basic tunic, an outfit I feel is a bit over-designed, and another simple outfit that I felt was the only real option. I put her in brown since the other fitting colours don't look as natural with the material, but the cord is still red as a nod to her classic colours. Goro appears in his MKX form as is. I would add all the variation gear, the helmet, the gauntlets and the glowing spots, and his intro cape all on his second palette. Put him on the throne and this fit is the perfect, well, fit. Rain never made it into the game. I wanted to avoid his default, and I disliked the second. Between the hooded outfit and the godly style, I opted for the latter, having the story emphasise this aspect, since it always gets undercut by a lack of screen time dedicated to him. This version knows he's a demigod already, and he wants everyone else to know it too. Ermac never appeared in the game, but bringing him back with his unplayable MK11 design would have been sick. Devora also didn't make the cut. In 11, her alts are mostly nude for some reason, with one that keeps the typical hooded look. So I went with that one. Shang Tsung takes his default from 11, another one that isn't canon, but still feels too 11 specific to me. I went with the variant of that costume, which was ironically what he wore in his reveal trailer, and stuck to the classic colours. I would have used black and red like the other variant has, but they didn't give this one that palette for some reason. I gave him the MK9 gauntlets as well because I like those, and most of the rest are too armoured to fit in my opinion. Kano takes his default and swaps green for black and red. Looks good, but not unique. I opted for the variant with the tank top and that palette, and a different chest piece that could just be high-tech promotion and not the unexplained Suhao Cyberheart. The bald version's variant didn't feel right for a default. I also gave him the MK9 eye to make him a bit more different from 11. Cabal has his 11 default but with human burnt skin for the cinematic, with only his MK3 form being playable. I opted for the design with burnt skin that isn't a revenant, leaving him mostly exposed without his coat. I'd rather he have a coat, but the unburnt version has that awful mohawk, so this was the best option. And while I'm not too fond of the mask chosen, I didn't want to just reuse any previous ones, and this one looks decent at least. Eren Black is the past version with black pants instead of blue. The variants of both designs felt unfitting to me, so I took his 4th of July outfit in its black and blue palette since it feels less gimmicky than the rest. Add a nice new hat and mask and boom, done. Nightwolf is the MK11 default. Again, not canon, but still carries a firm MK11 vibe. But it's amazing what a simple change in headgear can do. By swapping the helmet for a bandana and hair bun, he looks completely different. Always tip your barber, I guess. Cetrion only appears in a couple of cinematics, unchanged from 11. I gave her a simple variant that doesn't change her style too much. To me, this could be a design for a future appearance, hitting that right balance between new and familiar. Plus, the more cleavage on display, the more the whales will go for her, 'tis gacha game wisdom. Shinnok uses his MKX design because that's what his 11 cutscene model is based on. I think some palette reworking would have benefited it, along the lines of his form in the final 2 chapters. Quan Chi comes with an outfit derived from his 2002 to 2011 design. It's fine, but I'd have taken his MK9 alternate in a different colour just to be a bit different. Geras is another MIA character. I gave him the tunic variant because the bulk of his looks are just shirtless. If nothing else, M1K managed to fix that before not giving him any post-launch support. Cassie and Jackie also never made it into Onslaught because of its time frame. I picture the two as time travellers appearing in a later section of the plot, coming from the future to avert catastrophe, so I gave the two more tech-based looks, with Jackie's in particular suggesting she married Takeda and is now affiliated with the Shiraidu. And that is my take on the MK Onslaught character designs. I'll be giving my take on the story setup in the near future, so look out for that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go and make all my favourite waifus in Echo of Mobius, just so I can get some bad rolls and watch them all die horribly. If you liked this video, why not subscribe and support me on Patreon like these fine people here? If not, then make sure to share it with your enemies so they can suffer along with you. Today's recommended video is, I guess, an Onslaught cutscene compilation, because someone has to preserve Onslaught's story if Warner Bros. Won't. Bastards.